What is up, car addicts? Welcome back to my top 10 series. In this video, we're going to be discussing the top 10 most overpriced cars in GT Online in my opinion. And to clarify, this will not include aircraft, watercraft, motorcycles, properties, etc. Again, it's only cars with a couple larger vehicles as well. And before we start, I know there's going to be those few people who always comment, well, but if you do 2 or 3 Kaio heists, you can buy said car. And yes, while that's true, that still doesn't change the fact that a car can still be overpriced in comparison to others. But anyways, starting off with number 10, we have the Issy Rally. This vehicle released with the Drug Wars DLC drip feed earlier this year with a hefty price of over $1.8 million. Plus, if you're on current gen, it also offers HSW, which will cost you an extra $650,000 plus the upgrades themselves. So you're easily going to be over $2.5 million into this thing, which is just crazy. Now this car is actually in the SUVs class, and even though it has the name Rally in it, it's actually terrible to drive in off-road rally style tracks or dirt paths. It's not stable at all. It spins out a lot, the handling isn't all that great, and it's not as stuck to the ground as other rally cars like the Issy Sport, for example. And it's kind of ironic how the Issy Sport actually off-roads and rallies better than the Issy Rally. And for those of you on old gen who don't have HSW, this thing is just super overpriced and underwhelming performance-wise, and that's why it's on this overpriced vehicles list. Continuing to number 9, we have the Vagrant. Now this vehicle released with the Casino Heist update in 2019, and it does have performance that rivals the top of the off-roads class, so why did I put it on this list? Well, this thing has pretty average customization, and it has a normal price of over $2.2 million. I think that's absolute insanity for a little off-roader. That's literally supercar pricing for something that's not all that special, especially when you consider the fact that the Draugr, its competitor, is faster around most off-road tracks and more off-road capable for larger obstacles, and it's $400,000 cheaper. So again, I just think the Vagrant is just way overpriced. This thing should have had a maximum normal price of $1.5 million, at least in my opinion. Moving on to number 8, we have the Ocelot Lynx. This car released with the Cunning Stunts update in 2016 and has a crazy price of over $1.7 million, which is just absolute insanity when we think about when this car released in 2016 for a sports car with below average performance. Now, it has since been removed from the website with the recent Mercenaries DLC, but that still doesn't change the fact that this thing is just way overpriced, even if you find a different way to acquire it. Again, it has below average performance, being slower around a track than an OG Sultan off the street, for example, and the customization is pretty average. There's just no reason why this car needed to have a price higher than the Pariah. Now, I do know there's people who defend the price of this car, saying that it has nice styling, but I mean, this thing was based on a Jaguar F-Type, not some special concept or supercar or antique. So again, there's just no reason for this thing to be this expensive. Next up, on to number 7, we have the Stinger TT that was just added with the Mercenaries update. So this is a sports car that's based on an entry-level grandpa front-engine Ferrari with a price of almost $2.4 million, which is just insane. Plus, if we add in the HSW upgrade of $1.4 million, plus the upgrades themselves, that totals about $4 million for a sports car. That's just absolutely insane. And it's not even all that nice to drive. It's pretty bouncy and floaty over the bumps, just not all that stable. Plus the car is weirdly scaled up, making it larger and just not proportionate to other sports cars in the game. It just looks weird. And of course, the unnecessarily long and confusing name of the car, which is the Grotti Itali GTO Stinger TT, when they should have just called it Stinger TT by itself. Just really strange. So again, this car, just an absolute overpriced mess, as with most of the recent DLC content. And speaking of overpriced recent DLC cars, continuing to number 6, we have the Panthère. So this one was added with the Drug Wars update drip feed earlier this year and has a price of almost $2.2 million. And for a car that doesn't have any special abilities, no HSW, and the fact that it's based on a pretty basic sports car costing about $100,000 in real life, I just don't see how that translates to $2.2 million in GTA, even if we factor in GTA's crazy inflation. Maybe around 1.5 million max, but 2.2 million, I just don't see it, especially when this car has the performance of OG sports cars like the Coquette and the Banshee, and the handling is pretty terrible as it loves to like spin out in both low speed and high speed corners. Just not really a nice car to drive. Continuing to number 5, we have the iWagon. So this one released with the contract DLC drip feed in 2022 with a price of over $1.7 million, which is absolutely insane. This thing is an electric SUV that's super slow. Even when fully upgraded, it doesn't break 100 miles an hour. It goes like 95 miles an hour maxed out, which is just an absolute joke. And the track performance is sort of slightly above average, but still nowhere near the cheaper and faster SUVs at the top of the class. Plus, it doesn't offer a Money Tech or anything like that, and the customization is pretty average. Next up, on to number 4, we have the Brutus. So this one released with the Arena War update in 2018, and yes, I know pretty much all the Arena War vehicles are considered overpriced, but there are some that stick out to me as being overpriced and not really all that special and sort of useless. This is definitely one of them. So this thing has a price of over $2.6 million, which is just crazy. And when you factor in some of the Arena War upgrades, you're easily over $3 million into this off-roader. And with pretty average weapons and performance, I just don't see the point in owning it. Now, for those of you who are fans of the Tango and Cash truck that it resembles, I suppose there may be some value for those people for that movie reference, but for most of the community, this thing is one of the most useless and overpriced Arena War cars. Continuing to number 3, we have the Champion. So this one released with the contract update in 2021 with a normal price of over $3.7 million. This thing is in the supercar class and is one of the slowest ones in that class with performance similar to OG sports cars. Yes, performance similar to OG sports cars for a vehicle that's almost $4 million in the supercar class. I think that's just an absolute joke considering the price of this thing. Now, yes, it does offer Imani Tech, so there's a bit of an argument there. And it has fantastic styling as well, at least in my opinion, but I just don't think that warrants the price tag of this thing considering its performance being in the supercar class. I feel Rockstar should have either given it better performance or they should have at least put it in the sports class with a lower price tag. Moving on to number 2, we have the Cerberus. So this one released with the Arena War update in 2018. And like we talked about with the Brutus, this is another overpriced and useless Arena War vehicle at over $3.8 million. And of course, if you factor in all the Arena War upgrades, you're going to be in well over $5 million into this thing maxed out. I just don't see the value there for a massive truck with underwhelming armor. And for those of you wondering, it blows up with only 5 homing missiles, which is decent, but not all that great considering the size and price of this thing. Now, the truck itself is a direct reference to the War Rig from Mad Max, and also takes some influence from the Dreadnought from Death Race, but a $5 million movie prop is a pretty pricey investment. And lastly, on to number 1, the most overpriced vehicle in GTA Online in my opinion, just something that if you buy, you're just throwing your money away. We have the RCV. So this one released with the Doomsday Heist update in 2017 and has a normal price of over $3.1 million. This thing has no explosive armor, which is a joke considering the way it looks. Basically no customization except for some camo liveries, and honestly it isn't really all that great to drive. There's literally no reason to own this thing. It's just one giant paperweight that collects dust in my facility. Now, it does have the water cannon like a fire truck, but if the normal fire truck that you can steal off the street for free has the same explosive armor as the RCV, what's the point in owning it over the regular fire truck? There's just no reason. But anyways, guys, there you have it. The top 10 most overpriced cars in GTA Online in my opinion. Now, I know that I did include a couple larger trucks in here like the RCV and the Cerberus in this list, but there weren't really too many other overpriced vehicles in general I felt should be on this list considering GTA's inflation, which is just a really hard thing to balance on a list like this in 2023. But I think some of you will agree that there were some strong picks on this list. But anyways, guys, definitely let me know down below in the comments what vehicles are overpriced in your opinion that's not aircraft or watercraft. And of course, what other top 10 videos you guys like to see me do next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.